in the regions, in China, and more important, because Brunei have the problem of the labor supply. As I mentioned earlier, they only have 380,000 population. So they can produce in another country, and based on the certification, they can re-export the product overseas. A very important aspect of this certification quality is this would make to collateralize their inventory, their cattle, their forestry product much easier. So based on our discussion with the local commercial bank in the country and also in the region, we receive a very positive response in this direction. However, in the early infant period, the government has to play a very critical role. They have to subsidize the funding scheme to the SME and the farmers so that they can compete internationally, and while following strictly obliged to this strict halal process. So as a matter of fact, the government in Brunei, they have the ability to put together, allocate a sufficient funding to make this phase one work take off. However, we believe, and the government ticket is that the government cannot and should not be the only promoters of the scheme in the long term. So in the second phase, which is going to happen soon, is that we will invite the private sector, venture capital investors, and a private firm to participate in the expansion of the plan, so that the project in the longer term would become a public-private partnership program. And then, so having said that, the whole system is the park itself. One very important area is we discover is the raw material and the shipping out the final product. Logistics play a critical role. And a lot of the material they have to receive from the Borneo Islands, from the peninsula, and also from mainland China. So in the process, we have to work for them to carry out some kind of logistic cooperation in the material importing country and the market destination, including China. So in this process, we have to talk to different ports and logistics zones in Guangxi and in Guangdong provinces in China. And so overall, as a conclusion, based on this study, we understand an international agency like ITC should be in collaboration with the government, local government, and probably with or without the private sector, to involve in these kind of fairly innovative infrastructure projects to help the SME, not just in the agricultural sector, but in other sectors, that would be useful in the long term to create a platform for the SME to survive and to compete internationally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary and Mr. Kumar. I think a number of the issues you raised were equally important for us in Africa, and we are also grappling with the strategic importance of countries and the role of governments to step up efforts to develop emerging industries. I think as government we've been grappling with what type of preferential treatment or policies we should introduce to step up our support to SMEs. We've introduced lately SMMEs, which would be small, medium, and micro enterprises. And those challenges are often of strategic importance, not just to countries in the south, but countries in the entire continent in Africa. I'm going to introduce our commentators, and I'd like to ask some of our commentators to add their bit of opinion, and I'm going to go immediately to Mr. Mitzke. Thank you. Bernard, do you have a mic? He's sitting right in front. Could we hand him a mic, please?
Minister Jormat Pedersen, Mrs. Francis, ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely happy to have the opportunity to add some comments to the excellent speeches that we've just heard. The first point that I would like to make is, and all the speakers have emphasized that, I'm extremely happy about it, there is a strong link between finance and logistics required. When we talk about the supply chain, you can invest and manufacture in very good products. If you cannot get these products to your customer, they are worthless. So the link between finance and logistics is essential. The second point that I would like to make, the reality about logistics and supply chain management. Based on my observation, I have to tell you, we talk a lot about supply chain management, but we don't exactly know what it means. Very few companies really master that. Very few companies are really good at managing supply chains. I think we also have some companies here. I saw a name, for example, Dell, that we have a representative of Dell. I personally think this is a company that knows what supply chain management means. Why do I say that? I have to support Mr. Zuma when he said there is a lack of trust along the supply chain. We don't trust each other in the supply chain. From source to shelf, we have a find somebody to blame culture very often. Who can we blame? Upwards, upstream and downstream the supply chain. Instead of how can we better partner and collaborate with our partners, with our suppliers, with our customers, upstream and downstream. There's also a lack of willingness to take responsibility, Mr. Zuma said. And I'm afraid this is true. Not everything that Mr. Zuma said is probably true, but this is definitely true. A lack of willingness to take responsibility. We have to become better at that. I would also like to make a third point. The problems, some of the problems we are, as a big importer of goods, particularly on the trade lane, China to Europe, are facing right now. Primarily because also us, we have not been as good probably as we should in communicating with our partners, with our suppliers. So there are two aspects that I consider post-crisis problems that we are dealing with right now. One aspect is there's a lack of production capacity. Very many factories that we work with, they cut labor during the crisis and they cannot find labor now as business picks up again. So we have delays. We don't find the people that make the goods that we require, that we would like to sell. The second thing is there's a lack of capacity in regards to shipping capacity. Many shipping lines have cut capacity, have taken ships out during the crisis of the business, and that means that we have to pay higher freight charges, which is probably correct. But on the other hand, it really limits our ability to purchase goods and to move them across in time. The last point that I would like to make, the way we deal with, in our company, with our suppliers and partners along the supply chain, and a suggestion on how we could possibly jointly move forward to overcome these problems. We, as a company, try